All right, let's call to order the school building committee meeting. Roll call, please.
Mayor Nicholson,
Present.
Brian Castellanos,
Present.
Deb Ruggiero,
Present.
Diana Charkoutis,
Present.
Flory Makua,
Present.
Jessica Gerardo, Jim Ridley, John Ford, Joe Smart, Karen Miller,
Present.
Kevin Ritterhouse,
Present.
Lauren Drago,
Present.
Lorraine Gately,
Present.
Michael Bertino, Michael Donovan, Molly Cohen, Peter Kulakidis, Rich Marlin,
Present.
Rick Starbird,
Present.
Tom Mannion,
Present.
Mayor McGee, Wayne Losey, that's it. Okay, I'm going to turn over the hosting capability to Gene. He's going to put up the presentation for tonight.
All right. Jane Franklin is being admitted. And can you see my screen, Lynn?
Yes,
Just let me know when you want me to flip a slide.
okay. Next slide, please.
That was fast.
Yes. For tonight, we're going to go through and ask for approval of the February 15th meeting minutes. I'll give you a quick project budget update, and then I'll turn it over to Jean to talk about the designer progress to date. And then I'll come back and we'll go over a few of the meeting schedules and milestone schedules for the preferred schematic report. Next, Jean.
Sorry, I'm still learning how to do it. Okay.
We'd like to ask for a vote to approve the February 15th, 2023 SBC meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. In terms of the feasibility study budget report, we have expended 31% of the budget and committed 85%. Our progress based on where we're at with the preferred schematic report is at approximately 35%. So I think in terms of tracking to budget, we're doing a good job with that.
Great.
Next, please.
I'm admitting Molly Cohen.
Okay, thank you.
And I got to click on this. Okay, there we go.
This is just to show you our original projected cash flow, our actual, and where we stand with our revised projection. Again, we're in pretty good shape at this point in the project. Next slide. Turn it over.
This is a slide from me, and we wanted to provide a summary of the size of the building. We received some comments back from the MSBA about a week ago, a little over a week ago, related to our first submission, which was called the Preliminary Design Program, or PDP. And they didn't have any major issues, except they did point out that we had to provide some larger spaces than what we were providing so that we could stay eligible for their grant. So I have a very high level summary here, which is when we submitted to MSBA this PDP, we were at 193,000 square feet. We then ran some preliminary budget numbers and were unpleasantly surprised by how expensive it was to build that much square footage. So we met with the Lynn Public Schools and the OPM, and we presented this to you at your last meeting, February 7th, but we we reduced one of the clusters of sixth grade, which was equivalent to 4 classrooms. We took out a special ed program that could be provided at Breed and Thurgood Marshall. We took the maker space out of the media center, and we instead of having an extra large double-sized gym, we did an MSBA sized gym plus bleachers, so it's a little bit bigger. But then we had those 2 movement studios. Remember, we talked about last time, and we were gonna outfit them with some cabinets and some sinks so that they could be multifunction and provide maker activities. And then we also took out the phys ed locker rooms, and this is again before we met with you on February 7th, but the whole purpose was to see how low we could get the square footage and could, how low could we drive the budget. So when we met with you last time, we were not at 193, even though that went to MSBA, we were at 174. But then you all had your review of the plan and pointed out that the building really did need locker rooms. So we've added those back in. And as I kind of intimated, the MSBA said that the building is Tom McGee, I'm admitting, that the building needed larger science labs. So we had submitted science labs and prep rooms that were the exact same size and work well at Thurgood Marshall. But since Thurgood Marshall was built, the MSBA has changed their guidelines. And instead of a 1,200 square foot science lab, they want them to be 1,440 square feet. So we did that multiple times in the program, and they also needed some prep rooms. And then one pleasant surprise was that they did approve as reimbursable a 3rd phys ed teaching station. So we weren't sure that they were going to approve the 2 movement studios, and they did approve them. And they also said you could make them larger. You could make them, instead of a combined 2,400 square feet, you could make them 3,000 square feet. So we did do that because it was reimbursable space and they're going to be multi-purpose. So we want to be able to outfit them with a number of things. So where we are now at this meeting is we're at 182,000 square feet. And coincidentally, that's almost exactly the same size as Thurgood Marshall. So I'm going to just kind of stop every once in a while and ask if anyone has any questions, but I wanted to put that into perspective.
Gina, I do have a quick question.
Sure. Yeah.
So with the new gross square footage, and when you're saying they're approving it, does this mean they also committed to fund the design? Or like, what exactly does this mean since they're approving these milestones?
They have their guidelines, and they
Right.
have various categories of space, regular classrooms or phys ed or art and music. They typically will fund whatever their guideline calls for.
Right.
But a city or town is welcome to build more. It just means that it's on the city or town's dime.
Okay.
But what I was talking about with the movement studios is their guidelines call for 6,000 square feet for a gymnasium. And after reviewing the size of the building and the educational program, they are upping their guideline for this project to 9,000 square feet. If that makes sense, as reimbursable square footage.
So yes, in terms of funding, they are approving also to fund the project as is, based on the guideline? They are
There
committed to it.
for that category, they're committed to 9,000
Okay.
square feet. And I think with the locker rooms and the offices, I think we're 11,000 or, say we're 10,000, we're something like that. So there is still in many of these categories, some square footage that will not be reimbursed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't know, Karen, do you have your hand up?
Yes. So I just want to make sure that I have the terminology correct between the movement studio and you use the phrase PE teaching station.
Yes.
What's the difference between those two, or are they the same?
A PE teaching station is just a generic space that you can teach phys ed in. So like their typical 6,000 square foot gym, you put a curtain down the middle, and they call that 2 teaching stations because you could have 2 activities going on. And then with the movement studio, they said that would be a 3rd teaching station.
Or you could divide it into 2 1,500 square foot stations.
Okay. And then I just wanted to ask a second question about the labs and the prep room. So you said the science lab will be 1,440 square feet, and so that space does not include the prep room, right? That there'll be additional square footage for the prep room.
There'd be an additional 200 square feet for each prep room.
Okay.
And both of those are larger than their guidelines at Thurgood Marshall.
Okay. Thank
But
you.
if you want the grant, you have to do it.
Right.
Does anyone else have any other questions before I go to the next slide? So I'm not going to go through this. I think I just went through it, but Lynn Stapleton pointed out that this presentation goes on the website. So for people that might just see it on the website, we wanted to articulate in writing all the things I just told you. So since the last meeting, we just wanted to go through what we have been doing. And I know the package went out last night. So you're going to see that we've been doing a lot of due diligence on the Magnolia Park site. The site is getting very difficult to build on. Doesn't mean you can't, but it's turning into expense. So at the end of further in, I'm just going to show you another option that we actually are recommending that you take into consideration tonight. So I think we touched on some of this last time, but the Magnolia Park site used to be, some people had it as a lake, some people had it as a swamp, but it was a connection between the 2 ponds. And at some point it was filled. And it was filled with what they call urban fill, which is not virgin material. It's just kind of whatever they could find. They dumped it in, and they wanted to just build up the grade. So we don't have yet a volume, but we can't build on top of it, and we're going to need to remove some of it. And it's very expensive. Each cubic yard, right? 3 by 3 by 3 high is about $200 a ton. That's almost equivalent to a ton to remove from the site. We touched on it last time. The bedrock is way down below the surface, 165 feet, and we can't build on the soils and the fill that's there. We have to put what are called piles, probably 600 of these concrete columns that'll hold up the building, and they have to be supported on the rock. At Thurgood Marshall, which I keep referencing, but we did do a pile foundation because there was a lot of clay, but that was only 100 feet deep. So these are becoming very, very expensive. The deeper you go, the fatter they have to be, and the more of them you're going to break as you install them. We kind of out of the blue, the city received a a letter from FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, saying that they actually want to define the whole site as a floodplain. And I'll show you a diagram. We use, the current floodplain is part of Magnolia Park. As I say, coincidentally, like 2 weeks ago, this letter showed up and they are proposing that the whole park be a floodplain, which doesn't mean we can't build on it. It just means we have to raise the building up, and it means the piles have to get longer, and it means, I don't know, just more complications. We have been going back and forth with the city and trying to define this land swap, because Magnolia Park is a park and state law is going to require that if we build on it, in this case, we're building on a little over 4 acres, or we would if we built there. You have to replace that with designated parkland somewhere else in the city. So I'll show you some diagrams on that. And then that's Article 97 is beyond the normal permitting. And then there's this other thing, the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, and that's a whole nother permitting path. So we've been kind of digging into what that means for the project schedule. And then in the meantime, in the background, the traffic study has been ongoing. So I'm going to touch on a little bit of each of those. As I said, Magnolia Park, we've done, these test borings, we've done excavations of pits, and that's how we know that the rock is so low and there's so much fill and unsuitable materials. We did do one boring up on the Sisson Plateau. So it's up higher than, it's about 15 feet higher than Magnolia Park. In this case, it was right near the tennis courts. That was, we went down 52 feet. There was only 10 feet of fill. So there was a lot less than at Magnolia. And then below that was just kind of virgin, loose, silty sand. So we don't have the official word from our geotechnical engineer, but we believe that we're going to excavate less if we look at building up here in either the bridge option or a new option we developed. And we probably are going to be able to support the building on just conventional foundations as opposed to piles. So the floodplain that I touched on over here on the left, this is the existing floodplain. So Magnolia Park is right here, right? And Flax Pond, and then the Pickering Sisson. So the floodplain is kind of where that baseball field is, and it comes out into the park a little bit. This is the map that showed up a couple weeks ago, and it's there's Pickering and Sisson, but here's Magnolia. So you can see that this has not come into force. It's been issued to the city for comments, and we actually authorized our civil engineer to do some calculations and some study of the various watersheds around here to see if the city does agree, or if the city has a valid reason to say, no, this really shouldn't be floodplain. But as far as the preliminary pricing that we're doing right now, we have to assume that this is going to be treated as floodplain, which again means we have to end up raising the building and dealing with a whole bunch of kind of complications, which is fine. And I'm going to show you some budget numbers, and we've accounted for it, but it does raise the price. That Article 97, that land swap that we talked about, we have, since we met with you last time, received the site survey from the surveyor. We've taken this area, which is the area that we've been showing as the development area, and over here, we just blew it up and shaded it. But the area, if we build down here, or even if we do the bridge option up to Sisson, we would be taking about 4.42 acres. We need to replicate that somewhere else in the city. And that's that Article 97, process. So none of this is cast in stone, but this is a diagram that was developed. And the I don't know what you call this, but the Parkland Avenue site, the cemetery is over here on the other side, and Wyoma Square is over here. It's got some wetlands, but it's got a lot of uplands, and then it's got the big reservoir. That's about a 44-acre parcel. And the city is contemplating taking the area near the DPW salt shed, maybe that shed comes down, the dog park, and maybe coming up the hill a little bit, capturing a little bit of the wetlands. But they've been thinking about it's going to be easier. I know we only need to replicate 4.42 acres, but if we do 7, that just makes it an easier approval process. So that's kind of the current thinking on that.
And by utilizing this land, it protects it in perpetuity as parkland for no development.
Yep. And then this, I really don't want to, boggle your minds with, but with that FEMA map amendment, the floodplain, there's an option. We wanted to see what if we build in the floodplain, does it mess up the project schedule that we've all been working with so far? And so, if we got rid of the floodplain, this blue blah blah blah, we end up with MSBA approval hopefully in October, and the MEPA and the Article 97 maybe the next March. And maybe we could start design in November, knowing that, this approval is coming a few months later. So none of this is cast in stone, but this was kind of the fastest path. And then if that floodplain is there, what happens? And we went through all this rigmarole, and we put in the Lynn Conservation Commission, and we found out that we could stay on the same design path, but the MEPA approval instead of March might be in June. So like I say, I think it's a lot of stuff you probably, really the bottom line is we can build in the floodplain, and we can probably hold the schedule. So
I have a question related to this.
Sure.
Obviously this, so is there an ability to build the school next to Sisson and not deal with the issues we're talking about here, and then do the parking reflect a taking, but could actually build a school here, use the field for parking and drive through, and to deal with some of the traffic stuff, and because it sounds like we're really going down a really challenging road related to trying to put it on the floodplain. So I'd be happy to see is there a way we can build the school here and not do any takings, but build something that we would all be happy with, but not have to go with this, what sounds like becoming more and more of a challenge financially, as well as engineering the school to fit there.
Well, you're very perceptive. And it's actually, so we resurrected one of the options that we had studied during your tenure with you in 2018. And to be honest, that's what we're kind of recommending tonight because of all these variables and all the risk involved in developing on Magnolia Park. So Tom or Mayor, I'm not sure, can you see the screen, or are you?
I can, sorry, I've been on my phone now. I'm actually on my laptop. I couldn't get on, so,
Okay.
but I have been listening in.
Yeah, great.
I can see the screen,
Yep.
and I know that we talked about this early on with several years ago, taking a look at where the next to Sisson, the tennis courts, and trying to do it in a way that didn't mean that would be any takings, but there was an opportunity to, I think, explore that option. So I'm glad that we're at least talking about it.
Yeah, so as we got deeper and deeper into Magnolia Park, again, we know we can do it. There's just a lot of risk. There's a lot of schedule risk. There's a lot of money risk. We may even think we've nailed it all and then start digging in there and find something different. So we did spend time over the last week taking a look at an option that we frankly want to kind of show you tonight, which is building next to Sisson. And it works well, and it avoids a lot of the problems. So this is just the last thing of what we've been doing, but as I said, the traffic study is going on in the background. What this diagram is showing you is the distribution of the Pickering population, where are they coming from and going to, and what we intend to come out of this study is, depending on the redistricting, we expect to see maybe some more traffic kind of on certain roads here. So we don't have any answers right now, but that is going on in the background. So the MSBA, the next submission is due at the end of April. And part of that submission is you have to have a code upgrade. What happens if you just bring the existing building up to code? What happens if you do an ad reno? And what happens if you have a new? So we have those all covered. We actually have 3 ad renos that I'll go through quickly with you tonight. We do have to have professional cost estimators go out, and the OPM, Lynn's group will have one, and we'll have one, and the prices will be reconciled. So these prices have been developed kind of in-house, and they may change. I just want people to know they may change depending when the professional estimators give us their opinion. What we've shown on this is a total project cost, TPC, and that's on the left here for these options. And then MSBA will have a grant. We don't know the exact size of it, so we've again made some assumptions, and we're carrying what we think the city's share of the cost would be under all these options. The code upgrade, this is for informational purposes only. It doesn't meet the educational program. MSBA knows it doesn't. MSBA will not fund it, but they do want the city to just have that data, that even if you just brought the existing Pickering up to current codes, we think it would be about $76 million. Fine. We have shown you in the past, and I'll show you some diagrams, the addition renovation, which meant taking 3 properties and buildings towards Broadway, and then building a big addition over there, and then renovating what's left of Pickering. It's much more disruptive. It's got a much longer time schedule because building the addition is the same length of time as building a new building. But then after that, you need to spend a year or more renovating. So this is the most expensive option. It's longer, it's more picky, and you're doing takings. It's about 207 million total project cost. The city might be on the hook for somewhere around 95 million, 94 million. Then we had shown the Magnolia, which is a 4-story building there. We think the city's share is about 91 million. Because of the floodplain, the poor soils, and you're dumping about $20 million just into the ground to get a foundation in. Lorraine had asked last time about, well, what if we make Magnolia Park, that part of the building smaller, which we did, and then we bridged over to the tennis courts at Sisson, and it works out to be about the same cost. Yes, you spend less on foundations at Magnolia, but then you have the bridge and you have actually a little bit more square footage just because you're building 2 buildings essentially. And then that's what led us to say, wait, whoa. In 2018, what if we went back to where we had designed for Mayor McGee, a 4-story, 650 pupil school, kind of where the tennis courts are in the resource area at Sisson. And what if we added another story and we made it 1,100 pupils? So we did design that, and I'll show you to it. It has a lot less risk. We've gone through it with the educators. I think they didn't see any big issues with it. And it's the least expensive. It's about 85 million city share, we think. So as I can start flipping through some of the options, or I can stop here if anyone has any questions. But these are the 5 options that we're going to send to estimators next week, get their opinion, and then we're going to submit these 5 options to the MSBA. We are not asking you guys to pick an option tonight, but before it goes to MSBA, we do need to, you need to say, these are the 5 we looked at. This is the one we want to proceed with, and you have to get their permission, and this is why. So. This is just a breakdown of the 5 options across the top, and a breakdown of all the foundations, site work, total construction costs. I just highlighted, as I mentioned earlier, the one at Magnolia and Magnolia with a bridge to Sisson. You can see just for the foundations, instead of spending $4 or $5 million, you're spending 18 to 21 million just trying to get a foundation in the ground because of the soils, because it used to be a pond. So these, option 5A is the code upgrade, 76 million. Don't even give it another thought, but we've gone through and we've shown all the things you'd have to do, and we've put numbers on it. 5B, we haven't done our massing diagram yet, but the idea is this is the Sisson wing. This is the Pickering wing, and the Pickering wing currently has another wing that comes out here. So we would be demolishing that. Then we'd be building a 4-story addition. Against Broadway, it would be 3 stories because the site drops off, and this would be kind of a walkout basement. But as I said, the schedule's really long, the work's really picky. You have to have modular classrooms because you got to tear down this back wing. So it's the most expensive. The city share is about 94 million. Then you've seen this before. We've modified it to match the MSBA program. We added in the locker rooms and the toilet rooms for the community wing. So this is on the Magnolia. This is the MWRA line. So we know we can build in here, not impact that. Of course, we have all the other issues. So just as I said, we have added the locker rooms in. We've made the movement studios larger. We have toilet rooms for the public, but otherwise we made the science labs bigger, but otherwise it's the same layout you saw last time. We have the 4-story wing, which is pretty much classrooms. We have the community wing, which is the gymnasium and the cafeteria. And, in this option, it's nice because you have a 2-story addition kind of along Magnolia, with all the other low buildings. The entrance has to be over here because we need to bring parents in around the building and then let their kids off or pick them up on the passenger side. So the vehicular circulation has to go clockwise around the building, which is why the entrance is here. It's also nice because it kind of faces, the other public area. So this is what it would look like from Canomo Avenue. And we're just showing it as a mass right now. We put windows in just to give it a little bit of scale. We haven't, obviously it's got a long way to go before it gets designed. And then this is just another view, kind of giving you a better sense of what's up here. So that's, I'm gonna round, let's say it's 91 million city cost. The other one has a smaller footprint, right? Because we've taken this wing that was along Magnolia, and we've put it up on the Sisson Plateau. The tennis courts are under here, the pavement is here, and we have this bridge that goes over the MWRA line. And this is doable. The entrance is on the same side of the building. We've laid out the exact program. We have the the movement studios, the locker rooms, all the stuff that's in the program. This too, as I mentioned earlier, is about 91 million. It would look like this, right? You'd have this bridge, kind of like the ones that you see at Logan Airport. We'd have big trusses and a glass link. This is pretty much 4 stories of classroom and administration. We did put the cafeteria up in this area so that it might have a view out to Flax Pond, and then the gymnasium is back in here. So this is what it would look like, above Canomo Ave, kind of taking a look at it. Again, the entrance you can't see, but it's down at the first level. And then this is just another view. So those two, both around 91 million city share. And as I said, we kind of resurrected one we had looked at before, which completely avoids Magnolia Park, right? We have a more compact floor plan because it's 5 stories, not 4, but it is dug into the hillside. So just like Thurgood Marshall, up on the Sisson Plateau, it's going to be 4 stories tall. And on this side, where it's got a lot of breathing room, it's 5 stories. But the entrance is here, and that is going to help in a couple different ways. I'll show you.
Jean, can you let Brian Castellanos?
I don't see.
No, I'm sorry.
He's
When
here.
Councilman Lozey?
I did admit him, so I'm not sure what happened, Lynn.
Okay.
If I see him again. So the nice thing about this is you're building up here. The foundations are simpler. The floor plan is more compact. So I think it's going to be a more efficient building to build and operate. But it's like a walkout basement, right? This is the ground floor and it's kind of dug into the hillside. None of the spaces that are holding up the hillside need natural light. We have like locker rooms and custodial rooms. The gymnasium is 2 stories high, so we can put windows up at the Sisson level and get light into there. But down below, you're entering in from Magnolia Park, from this elevation. And what it does is it leaves the whole Magnolia Park available as a community amenity, right? And you can replace the hard surface play area, down here at the park. We've just shown a soccer field, but you could have a multi-purpose field of some sort. The other thing about this is it segregates the traffic because the Sisson traffic can still be centered on Canomo Avenue. And the Pickering traffic could come off of Magnolia, either from Broadway or from the north here, and it could flow through the site this way and either continue back out to Magnolia or continue up to Broadway. So, but the Pickering and Sisson face different ways, and that could be an advantage as far as dispersing traffic. I don't want to go through all the floor plans, but happy to if anyone has any questions. We have the gym, stage, CAF combination. We have the locker rooms. We have the drama, the toilet rooms. So this is kind of the community floor that could be segregated. And then we have a floor above, and then 3 more floors where we have all the academics and clusters. So this is an image that we have updated from where we were back in 2018, but we've added on this upper floor But as I say, like from Sisson and Canomo, it's really a 4-story building because the lower floor is kind of like a walkout basement onto the park. This is above Canomo. Looking at it, you know, in my mind, we would want to try to leave a planting zone just to I don't know, respect the neighbors to the extent possible. But I do want to say, when you go down the street at Thurgood Marshall, that is a 4-story building, and there are houses right across the street. And the way we've treated that building was with light colored panels. And I've always been very, very happy with the way it turned out. It just does not loom over the neighbors. So the other thing about this is, if you're anywhere in this building, the most you would have to go down to get out of the building is 4 stories. So even if you're on the 5th floor, you only have to come down, just like Thurgood Marshall, 4 stories, and you can get out at the Sisson Plateau. So.
Excuse me, I have a question. My name is Jane Franklin, and I'm the principal at Sisson School.
Oh, sorry, I was trying to find you.
I have a question. Are you eliminating the portables that are at Sisson?
Oh, thank you for mentioning that, Jane. Yes.
Oh,
So I'm going to blow this up a little bit.
okay.
So we do need this footprint, right? Maybe we can bring it a little more to the right, but like I say, I was trying to create a planting buffer. This red rectangle right here are the 4 Sisson modulars. Whether they get replaced somewhere or relocated, they are kind of old, so I don't know if we can relocate them. That's one option, and maybe they go in the courtyard and maybe they connect to Sisson. The other thing I had mentioned, just as a temporary measure for the 2 years it's going to take to construct this, you know, we could more cost effectively, though I know it impacts the drama program, we could remove the chairs in the auditorium, frame in a floor. So when you came from the corridor, you're just walking on a floor that's level with the stage. And I know we could create 4 classrooms in the auditorium if the modulars didn't work out for some reason. Tom Mannion is asking to come in. But Jane, I mean, you're very perceptive, right? We do need that footprint. And then there's 2 classrooms that are part of the permanent Sisson, but they're only 1 story high. They're not 2 stories. So we had shown them coming down also to get some breathing room here. But depending where this footprint ends up, you know, maybe we don't have to take them down.
I mean, Sisson as it is, it doesn't have enough space. So if you're eliminating space, that's not a good thing. And as far as putting it over at the old Pickering, that would be, I mean, it would be okay, but it's now away from the rest of the building.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday too with some of the you know, I don't know the other people we were talking to, but maybe let's say we did create 4 temporary classrooms in the auditorium. Maybe those become Pickering classrooms, and we kind of take away some of the Pickering classrooms that are over next to Sisson. So you could kind of say everything to the right of this is Sisson, and the Sisson kids don't have to go through Pickering to get to the temporary classrooms. We don't have all the solutions. There's always a process you have to go through, like how are people going to live through this? And like I say, maybe it becomes modulars or maybe it's something else, but I can say with all sincerity that there is a way to build this and maintain the function of what you have right now.
Okay. Because I really, I mean, if anything, I would like to add rooms rather than take rooms away. You know?
That's
At this point.
understandable.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. think that's kind of, where we landed once we started figuring out all the cost and really frankly, the financial risks. Even if we think we have it nailed down, we don't know what's going to happen. So we kind of like this as a recommended option. It also happens to be, it looks like it's like $6 million cheaper for the city. I'll
Lorraine,
stop-
do you
stop
have your hand up? Oh, okay.
I do. I'd like to mention to Jane that after those 2 years of misery, you'll probably have a lot of Pickering. But I really like this idea because we're away from the floodplain. It'll be a good solid building. And that's all I had to say.
I think it just has a lot less risk associated with it.
Gene, are you carrying money for the unsuitable soils, like an allowance in your estimate for the Magnolia site?
We were, yes, yeah, we were carrying 15 to like $3 million just to haul the stuff away, Tim.
But there's a chance that it could go higher, right?
Is
That's
a
what-
Yeah, that's the problem. We don't know. We don't have a report back. And even if we get a report back, we're not sure how precise it's going to be with how much we're actually going to have to take out at the end of the day.
Counselor Starbird has his hand up, yeah.
Oh, I'm
Thank you,
sorry.
Mayor. Probably about 10 years ago, quite a bit of money was put into those portables at Sisson. I know Mike Donovan's not on tonight, but I wonder if there's any value into talking to him and getting his thoughts on the possibility of maybe moving them to another part of the site so that we don't lose them. But I think we put, if I remember right, over $500,000 into those, rehabbing them probably about 10 years ago. So if they could possibly be moved, I think that would be a good thing without losing the class space and still retain those units.
Yeah, we actually talked about that a little bit yesterday. Like maybe they could be picked up and then kind of craned into the courtyard. Rick, I think Mike had a little trepidation about the physical condition of them, but we haven't really explored it in
I
depth.
think when you look underneath them, they still have the wheels on them, or the axles.
Yeah. The problem is I don't think we can wheel them up this hill, but anything can be done. We can crane them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So I don't know if anyone has any other questions or comments on this. I think Lynn has a couple more slides. And we can certainly come back to anything at any time. So want me to just keep going?
Yes, please.
Okay. So
just wanted to quickly run through the meetings that we have proposed for the remainder of the preferred schematic report and then into the schematic design process. I have highlighted here, we're having 2 meetings in March and 2 meetings in April. And I think that will help us get to the submission date of the PSR, which is April 27th. We've gone over the alternatives that we have tonight. We'd like for you to make a decision on what you prefer as the option to move forward with as the preferred option at the March 29th meeting. And then we'll be asking you to review cost on April 10th and to vote to approve the draft PSR for submission at the April 24th meeting. And then we will take any comments that are received, wrap that up, and submit the PSR at the April 27th meeting. From that point, it goes to MSBA, and we'll have to go through a facilities assessment review with MSBA, and then they will vote at their June 21st Board of Directors meeting to approve the PSR, which gives us the green light to move into the schematic design process. The schematic design will be taking place over the summer, so we'll have a few meetings throughout the summer in order to get us ready to make us submit the schematic design submission on August 30th. Submitting on August 30th will get us in front of the MSBA Board of Directors for approval of the project scope and budget at the October 25th meeting. So that's currently the schedule. We do have some float here if something comes up and we need to adjust course or extend our schedule, but this is the schedule that we are targeting. Next, Jean. And this is just an overall look at the schedule. The reason why we, would like to stay with our targeted schedule is that we want to open the school by fall of 2026. So when we push that time frame out at any point, you can see we're fairly tight here. When we push that time frame out, it just puts us in a position of having to push out the start date. So we're all targeting a fall of 2026 school opening. Flora, do you have a question?
Yes, for both
Oh.
you and Jean, what's the schedule impact on option 7? Can you foresee any better design, schedule?
We think it's a better schedule in that we're not driving 165-foot piles that take a lot of time. And with
Right.
that depth, we'll likely break a few of them. So we think it will be a much quicker schedule. But again, we haven't overanalyzed it at this point because we'll do that once we get to a preferred option. In terms of schedule, though, we think it will be much easy to achieve the schedule you see in front of you with an option at the Sisson site.
And I also believe that the neighbor will feel much better with this option 7 instead of driving those piles, especially living near them. I think it'd be very impactful.
It will be a much easier construction experience.
All right, thank you.
Definitely. Lorraine?
Me unmute. There are a couple of things. One, I would like to have a public meeting probably around April 10th so that we could show the community the option 7 plan if we vote on it. I would also like Superintendent Ruggiero or Alvarez to have a conversation with Kevin Ritterhouse and Jane Franklin about the possibilities of what we can do to help that transition go smoother for both schools. So I really want to have a lot of transparency and a lot of open conversations so that when we do vote April 24th for a plan, that everybody has an idea of what hopefully will happen for the next 2 years, and we can try to satisfy it, both schools at that time. That's what I would like to see happen over the next 3 weeks, if that's possible.
Great. Yes, we do want to schedule in this a public forum to give an update on this preferred schematic report phase of the project. So we'll start looking at dates for that and get back to you at the March 29th meeting. Mayor McGee?
I'm happy to ask a question, but I think there's a couple people that haven't asked questions, so I'm happy to wait for both Wayne and
I just
Karen.
saw you at the top of the list here.
No problem.
Councilwoman Lozey?
Yes, hi. very interesting, the new design. I like the fact that Lorraine pointed out, we really need to get public meetings, the public involved in this because of the fast-moving track that we're on. I'd like to hear a little more about parking. We're going to lose a lot of parking. What you have in mind, how you're going to remedy that issue?
Oh, can you see this okay? So we are definitely losing some parking. I mean, we could keep it. We were trying to have a planting buffer, but we've shown removing some of the parking at Sisson. But we, even with, kind of a regulation soccer field and replacing the hard surface play, we've shown a tremendous amount of parking kind of down at the Magnolia field level. So we haven't done the in-depth, how many teachers and how many staff will be in this building. But we have identified, 68 spaces here, 10 here, 14 here, 55 here. So we know we have, well, we want to do it, right? We will do a count. Let's say after Pickering moves into the new school, you still use the old Pickering and you have staff in there. So we'll pull together a worksheet on how many staff would be in these 2 or 3 buildings, however you see them, and how many parking spaces they may require.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Karen?
Yes. So I wanted to go back to that FEMA document for the floodplain. So if that were, and I understand, so then the city, that would kind of require the city to, I guess, agree that that would also be floodplain. If that were to happen, how would that affect that hardscape play space that would then be replaced for Sisson, and really for that matter, the parking lot?
It's actually works out well having, because parking lots, play areas can be, flooded, and the flood waters recede, and you don't have any damage to a building. And you don't have to worry about getting to the building, when it is flooded.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think that left Mayor McGee.
Thank you. A couple of things. I think Rick, made a really good point related to the modulars. And I think you laid out, there's an opportunity to really take care of those classes separate from the modulars. So those modulars could actually be used maybe in another location, Rick. So I think it's a great point, but I think Gene, you really laid out an opportunity to maybe make, Sisson expand out in a way that connects right to Sisson and works, and maybe allow the modulars to be taking, there's definitely space, as the mayor knows and the council knows, and the school committee, there's definitely space needs throughout the city. Secondly, I think related to the last point I think Karen made, the parking piece, there's definitely a lot of parking that goes on there. So I think the key would be with the parking and in terms of the traffic issues, it seems to me there's an opportunity to alleviate the traffic, particularly with the Pickering going to be a much bigger student population than is at Sisson down below. And it alleviates at least some of the challenge related to the park. The park taking, you're going to create a opportunity for a soccer field, the tennis courts, as well as hard play service. So there's a lot of positives, but I think the point I really wanted to make was it allows us hopefully to take a really serious look at alleviating the traffic on Canomo and really making a flow of traffic, bus student drop off in that lower location, directly related to the new school up above, that maybe makes a real opportunity for us to deal with what's been an ongoing discussion about what's the traffic going to look like, how's it going to impact the neighborhood. So it seems to me there's better opportunities taking the field below to address both keeping some of the parkland as well as parking, and maybe really making an opportunity for getting, the drop off the streets and right in a substantially larger area than it's happening right now. So just I don't know if that's a question or a point for discussion, but just some of those points that I think are important as we move forward on this.
Yeah. I haven't mentioned it, but I just think it's better for the neighborhood, because the other two options were pretty much taking Magnolia Park, and now to me, here you still have that amenity, among other things.
And Gene, just one point related to that, because I think we talked about it, but there's still an opportunity to create some park space across the street on the pond for maybe a play area for young people. There is space over there. I know we talked about it. So we're preserving the field, we're preserving, some hard play area as well as the tennis courts. And there is an opportunity across the street maybe to enhance there's some of that area that's being taken up by the soccer field. There definitely is space over there on the pond to create a really cool space for young people with, the kind of playground that would be, take over what, that would be where we could place it as we're taking it over in the current space.
A couple other people have raised their hand. I guess, Tom, I saw yours first. I think you're muted, Tom.
Sorry.
No problem.
I'm still working on this thing. I just want to go out and say, having worked in a construction business as an electrician, Gene, this whole project where you're putting it right now makes total sense for everybody in that neighborhood, especially other elderly people living next door. If you're going to try and run 160-foot piles down day after day, probably for months, this whole thing I'm in total favor for. It's a great plan, I believe. It's awesome. And I just wanted to go on and say, this is well done. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Wayne?
Yes. I want to just touch on, Mayor McGee pretty much answered my question regarding the loss of some of the field, the potential across the street. It's kind of a shame to, that's been historically a pond front area, not really a recreation area. I don't know, maybe it could work. But that was kind of one of my questions with the loss of some of the recreation area. And then I guess a follow-up on the parking. I've seen the flooding there, even though there's a lot of floodplain, there's just natural flooding almost on an annual basis along there. And are there plans to elevate that parking area slightly maybe, or, there would be a concern with much of that parking area getting flooded. And
We would be
I just-
providing subsurface drainage and stormwater retention as well. So we would have the ability to mitigate standing water in that area.
But Wayne,
Yeah, I'd love to see and hear more of that, because, it just, it's been an ongoing problem there, the flooding there. And I'm not aware of any subsurface drainage that could convey any of that away from there. And I'm sorry, I'd be concerned.
yeah. Well, I think we're so, hey, that makes a lot of sense, right? Your comment. And we are so early and we're not really even into the design process. So we will have to do a study on that for sure, Wayne. And the one thing I just want everyone to remember is we can't raise the grade too much unless we carve away some hillside somewhere else, so that the volume of water that we take out of the floodplain when we fill it with dirt, we have to replace that same volume somewhere else. So might we carve into the hillside, you know, kind of at the back of Pickering, maybe, you know, but it does need to be studied, and a strategy needs to be developed. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the city would be required to provide compensatory flood storage for anywhere that they filled in.
Correct.
So yes, there would have to be a study on that, but I think it's going to be quite the challenge to find any kind of, I mean, you're mentioning on the plan an existing storm drain, but that wouldn't provide storm drainage for most of that parking going towards Magnolia.
Correct.
And that would be something I'd like to see further.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Great. Well, I just want to thank everyone for the excellent comments and questions tonight. And I would want to make one more point, but I want to thank the project team for really pushing to think creatively to address a lot of these issues and reacting to the information as it comes up, so that we're positioning ourselves well, and also, you know, helping us think through the cost implications. And I want to be transparent that we continue to have issues with the cost about the city's ability to afford the share of even the option 7. And I think I mentioned on the last call that we are working with the state delegation to be approaching the state to make that clear to the state and communicate what our ask is and what's going to be necessary for us to be able to move forward on this project with this timeline. And I think we've gotten some good feedback so far, but I think we still have a lot of work to do to be able to make that happen. We've been communicating with other communities that are in a similar position with this sort of jump in construction costs, and I've gotten good feedback from them to sort of demonstrate this is not just us that are facing this, but we're going to need to continue that advocacy for us to be able to stay on this track. And so we will be sort of following up with the school committee, you know, who can help us there, you know, make that advocacy with Member Gately, Member Castellanos as the school building committee reps, and then Councilor Starbird, Councilor Lozzi, Councilor Kudus, and the city council to, you know, try to present a strong case to the state to help us plug the gap that was created by the jump in construction costs. Any other thoughts or questions? Again, great questions tonight. Really excited about the reactions to some great thinking, and looking forward to our next discussion. Don't hesitate to reach out in the meantime with any thoughts or questions, and we'll be in touch.
Great.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm.